guys, welcome back to this XRP video update, where today we're going to dive into what's happening on the XRP price chart and how things are likely to play out on XRP in the short term here, while Bitcoin is likely in a correction. Now, this is a really massive video. There's a lot I want to go over. I also want to talk about price targets for XRP and what I'm looking for in the future. And I have a super interesting chart that I was going back and having a look at the other day. And to say the least, it is very similar to the way XRP is playing out and gives us amazing price targets for XRP, quite similar. So let's jump into the XRP price real quick and just go over what we're looking at and what we're waiting for. So in Friday's recap, we said that we weren't going to take any trades here at this level, and we were waiting for XRP's price to come down to these $2.15 and $2.17 areas. Now, if you caught yesterday's Bitcoin video, you'll see that we talked about what type of stage Bitcoin's in, and that we're likely in a micro version of the $69,000 all-time high, and that likely we're not going to see any expansion from the altcoins till this moment right here, where Bitcoin can breach that all-time high again, and we can see expansion in Bitcoin and the altcoin market go with it. And that we are likely in this phase right in here for Bitcoin. And as you can see today, which is here on the left, that we have Bitcoin actually breaking down, finding support right where we spoke about yesterday in this zone, the same way it did right here, funny enough. And that now what we're looking for is a sweep of the highs it set here. So these highs here are the same as these highs, and now we're going to be looking for Bitcoin's price to shoot up, sweep that high, make the lower high, and then we're going to take a short if things play out like this, and then we look for the move down on Bitcoin. Now, the reason we're talking about Bitcoin is because if Bitcoin's price is to move down like so, what's that going to do for the XRP price chart? We know that when Bitcoin came down for this initial sell-off down here, that XRP's price was at the same level that it's at right now. And now that Bitcoin's price is actually a little higher from those lows down there, we can see XRP isn't holding up as well, and that it's back at the lows. So if Bitcoin is to go into this correction here, and to make things clear, this is only the A leg of the correction, and that the C leg of the correction is much deeper here for Bitcoin, which I think is how things are going to play out. So where would that put XRP? You'd have to say that $2.15 level is very likely to get hit, and it may even potentially go lower. However, I don't see XRP going sub $2, but I do think it could get pretty close in those low $2 areas. But we'll have to just wait and see how Bitcoin reacts in that moment. And if we do actually get this sweep like we want to see on Bitcoin here, where we get that ABC correction and then things can break out to the upside, in this moment right here, depending on where XRP's price is most likely where I'll think the bottom is in for XRP. But if I had to guess, it could be in those low $2 areas, just by looking at the way XRP is holding up against Bitcoin right now. And if you have a look at XRP against the rest of the market, we spoke about how it was very common for XRP to actually underperform, which is this fractal here. Last November, when XRP went into that huge bull run that it had and shot up to $3, this was actually XRP's dominance right here. And you can see XRP's dominance was selling off all the way here, while Bitcoin was actually breaking out at those $69,000 all-time highs. And if you have a look at today's, you can see the dominance has been doing the same thing. It's been selling off, and it hasn't been selling off as aggressively as it did last time, but you can see the trend is the same, and it's broken all support levels here on the XRP dominance against the rest of the crypto market cap, and it's acting quite similar to the way it did. So some might look at this as a bad sign, but I look at it as confluence to the way XRP reacted last time. And the way XRP reacted last time was the big sell-off and then the big push, which came later on, and that's the way XRP prices always worked. So just to clarify, if we look back at Bitcoin here, this moment right here for Bitcoin, and we see Bitcoin break back to the upside here and go for that push, was when we seen XRP flip the switch here and the dominance break to the upside very aggressively. And right now, if we had to kind of have a look at where we think things are, I mean, it's hard to say, but the trend is quite similar. And I still think XRP's dominance is going to continue to sell off as Bitcoin continues along with this correction that we have playing out here. Now let's jump into the XRP price target, because this is something I was having a look at when I was going back over the charts, and I found super interesting. And I thought it was just a crazy coincidence that I just happened to be looking at Litecoin of all coins, a coin I never really pay any attention to. However, I was looking back at it and I found crazy similarities. So this is Litecoin back in 2015, 2016, and this is the bear market for Litecoin. Now, right here, what we have is XRP over the last 3 years and the bear market for XRP. And as you can see, we've had some peaks and then it was quite flat, but XRP's price did gradually grind to the upside here in its bear market through 2022, 2023, and most of 2024. Similar to Litecoin, how we had a few peaks here and then price did just slowly grind to the upside before eventually exploding here. Now, what's funny about this Litecoin explosion is if we shrink this down, we can have a look and see that Litecoin exploded up, had a consolidation phase, another consolidation phase, and then it went into this phase right here where it had these double tops, a correction, a massive pop, an aggressive sell-off to take it all back, and then slowly grind to the upside. Which, if we have a look at XRP, we can see that XRP had very similar movements here, where it had these consolidation phases before then going into that double top, and then that prolonged consolidation that lasted most of December and January, similar to the way that Litecoin's consolidation phase lasted like this. And then we've seen that aggressive shoot back up and that instant sell-off, taking back all that and sweeping the lows, which is exactly what XRP did right here, where it shot back to the upside, instantly sold off and swept those lows. But then you can see that what happened after XRP swept those lows is we've actually been grinding up on this trend line here. Except for the tariff scare that happened, XRP's price has been grinding to the upside, similar to the way Litecoin's price has been grinding to the upside and finding support on this trend line. Now, it's much smaller here on Litecoin because the way price used to act back in 2017 when it was a much smaller market, things would happen a lot faster. Today, things are much more prolonged and drawn out, but we can see heaps of similarities in the structure here, and the way that things have acted so far are quite similar to the way Litecoin acted. On top of that, this was Litecoin sitting above its high. It doesn't show it on this chart here, but this is Litecoin sitting above its high, the same way XRP is sitting above its high. So you're probably wondering, okay, what came next on Litecoin and how did things work here? So what you can see is that when we bounce along this trend, we have that moment where Litecoin actually sweeps the bottom of this trend line in this wick, which is quite similar to this tariff scare that we've had. Obviously, there was much more price action below the trend line, but things do happen much slower in today's market. So you can actually see that same wick below the trend line, the way things happen on Litecoin. And then we've seen price move to the upside and actually come and back test that trend line. So on XRP, this trend line is roughly where we think price will come and back test, which gets us back down to those $2.15 levels. If price was to fall from here now, you would roughly see XRP at around $2.15, similar to the way Litecoin actually came and back tested the same region, even just poking through it a little bit. But what's most exciting is actually what came next for Litecoin, which was that final explosive parabolic leg that it had in the cycle where it shot all the way up here. Now, what I find most interesting about this is if you grab a Fibonacci extension tool here and you grab it from the top of Litecoin's pop and you place it all the way down to this point right here where Litecoin sold off and where it swept the lows in that aggressive dump here, and you do the same thing on XRP here, and you grab that Fibonacci extension tool from the top here and you drag it all the way down, not to where the tariff scare was, but to where that wick was that swept the low here, the same way we did on Litecoin here, and you have a look at the extension, you'll see that Litecoin actually went for a full 4.236 extension here, and what we've seen is actually just a few closes above. But if you were to use this as reference, you would have nailed pretty close to the top of Litecoin here, bar just a few days where it pushed higher. Now, what's funny is if you've caught earlier XRP videos, you'll see that our price target for XRP is around that $9 to $10 region. Now, if we use the same Fibonacci extension the way we did on Litecoin and have a look at where that takes XRP's price to, you'll see that the 4.236 extension here is the $4.86 level on XRP. And if you have a look at Litecoin, you can see that it poked above that 4.236 extension. However, this was a great marker of where the top came in. So if things were to play out similarly on XRP, which they have been playing out quite similar so far, it's likely that XRP will push just a little bit past this $8.69 area to potentially that $9 region, even that $10 region a little bit higher, similar to the way Litecoin did here, which would be a pretty close approximation to the top. And then you can see what came after that is Litecoin eventually sold off and went into its bear market, and then you've seen these price targets come again, but that's kind of where the bottom was found. So what's most interesting about this is that these levels that we're at right now for XRP will most likely be revisited at some point in the future, But before we revisit those levels, it's likely we finish that final leg in XRP and have that 4.236 extension like we did in Litecoin, which should take us well above $8.69, potentially to that $9 and $10 region, the same way it did for Litecoin, where it took it just above that 4.236. However, if you were to use this as your guide and get out at this level, you'd pretty much nail the top. So that was something I found quite interesting on the XRP price chart when having a look back at previous coins that have gone for full extensions, when they've broken out from previous all-time highs and consolidated at the old all-time high, the same way that XRP has done. And it's just a further confirmation that that price target that we're looking for around that $9 to $10 is more likely now, and that we've seen more confluence throughout this market where other coins have performed in the exact same way. However, in the short term, it is likely that XRP does find support on this trend line down here at around that $2.15 area, potentially even wick below it. And until that happens, the way we're trading this market is going to stay the same, where we still think XRP is going to come in for that ABC correction. We've kept our messaging pretty much the same the entire time here on the channel, not expecting crazy breakouts, not expecting things to go to the moon just yet, and that there's still a little bit more selling off and correcting before XRP can actually go, and that it never expands without Bitcoin. So we are waiting for Bitcoin to finish this consolidation. So to wrap up everything here on XRP, not taking any trades at the moment, and not really surprised by how price is playing out, or am I shocked by the way that it's underperforming against the rest of the market, because this is what it does every time. And if this is what it does every time, then what that means comes next is the fireworks and the excitement once it's done correcting. So staying quite patient here on XRP and just waiting to see how Bitcoin plays out. And once we see Bitcoin, again, go for that moment where it can break back through that all-time high again, we should see XRP and the rest of the altcoin market rally quite aggressively in this moment and come with Bitcoin, because so far what we've seen is Bitcoin break through an all-time high like it's done here on the left, but nothing else has come with it. XRP still way down from its highs, and the rest of the altcoin market looks quite similar. So thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you took something from it. The Litecoin analysis here I found quite interesting. I was having a look through Litecoin price, and I found so many similarities between the way the bear market worked, the first leg up in Litecoin's market, and the way this whole structure played out is very similar to the way things are playing out on XRP. So I thought I'd share that here on the channel, and even with the price targets, it's quite similar to what we've been talking about and looking for. But yeah, it is likely we do continue to consolidate and sell off here for XRP before we see anything happen further. Anyways, guys, I might be back tomorrow for another Bitcoin video if price can shoot back to the upside, perform that break of structure, and then the rally so that we can hit the short off. The same way price reacted in this moment right here, where it shot back down to those levels that we were looking for, swept the highs here where this blue line is, and then we got that break of structure down here, and then we've seen price shoot back up for a lower high here. And if this moment is presented to us tomorrow, we'll come back live on the channel and do a bit of a trading video scaling into this short here, showing how we do that, and how we will be looking for price targets here, which the initial price target will be the sweep of this low. Anyways, guys, have a good rest of your day. I'll catch you tomorrow. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and leave a like, it helps a lot.